With the very last pick of day 2, the Vikings get a depth receiver? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Today, well, it's a Saturday morning, but it's the draft. This is what we do. And we got a couple things to talk about that the Vikings did, and maybe a little bit of a preview of what we're looking for on day 3. Things are a little different because they made a trade, but then they drafted Tai Felton. Tai Felton is a wide receiver out of Maryland. Last time they did that, it worked out okay. But I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't really like the pick. I don't like the pick. I'm sorry. I don't like it. And I could sit here and tell you all the different little cope reasons. And I'm going to tell you all the little cope reasons why you could like it. And then I'm going to tell you why I don't like it. But I'm going to be honest with you, all right? I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat things just because that might not be what everyone wants to hear on draft weekend. And hey, I'm wrong all the time about stuff. So don't worry about it. First things first, though, the Vikings wait all the way till 97. We were thinking maybe there was a little bit of sort of like soft reporting that the Vikings were thinking about maybe using future picks to trade up. But I don't know who that would have been for. Most of the players that I thought were like worth, making a big investment in were gone by pick like 60. So there was just nothing. You could sit there and like whinge about what was there. I think 56 was their original second round pick that ended up going to Houston in the trade up. It ended up being part of Dallas Turner, I guess, but it was the trade they made in like March that seemed like it was a kind of a poising for a quarterback thing. They traded it away in that one. And you could sit there and like whinge about who was available or who got picked up. Whatever. I'm not doing that. Okay, that's stupid. You're just making up stuff to be mad at, okay? You don't have to do that. The Vikings will give you plenty to be mad at. We know this, unless this is your first year as a fan, in which case, welcome, and I'm sorry. But instead, they wait all the way till 97. They let the draft come to them, and then they trade back a few more. They go back 5 slots to pick 102, and for their trouble, they move pick 187, their 6th rounder, back up to the 5th, and it is now pick 142. So they have 139 and 142, 2 5th-round picks. Those 2 5th-round picks are all they have on day 3 right now. Maybe one of those gets traded back and split into a 6th and a 7th or something like that. Otherwise, they will pick twice in rapid succession, and we'll be done. We'll get out of here. On the trade charts, every trade chart except for the Jimmy Johnson one, no matter who you like, whether it's the PFF one or the Rich Hill one or the over the cap one where they do it based on contract values, all say that the Vikings got away with a slight edge in value, an edge in value that's worth like a 7th round pick or something like that, like a little bit of profit from this move. So great. It's like really small potatoes. They moved back 5 spots. They moved up around tomorrow, like whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. What I want to spend my time on today is Tai Felton. And if we have a little bit of time, we can address some of the other things about Donovan Jackson. I don't think we're done talking about Donovan Jackson at all and the sort of philosophies behind that pick. But this is another example of the Vikings kind of following through on some of the like objectives that they very publicly set out. The Vikings talked about wanting a little bit more in the return game. They also, like Vikings reporters that like the Star Tribune team who are never going to go report something that they don't have the blessing to say, right? So you can kind of think about, like, if they're saying it, they're allowed to say it, it's state-approved media a little bit. And they were saying it as well, that the Vikings were maybe a little dissatisfied with the return game. And Brandon Powell, I thought, was a fine returner, right? He didn't fumble. He fair caught. He played it conservative. You're always going to be fine. But maybe you want a little more explosiveness there. To me, this pick is aimed at that and at special teams. He is So the basic things you have to know about Tai Felton: 6'2", or 6'1", almost 6'2", 4.3, 740. So tall speedster, right? You love to see that. And the reason he's available at pick 102 is because a lot of his tape's really bad. But we'll get to it, okay? We'll get to it. But there are a couple like specific wide receiver things that bug me that we can kind of talk about. But sort of the point of him is all the other stuff on the margins of wide receiver, right? The actual like run a route, catch the ball, those parts are weaknesses. And there's like a focus drops issue. There's route running issues I'll get to later, but there's like blocking, right? Catch a tunnel screen and do yards after the catch stuff. The things that like you don't really spend a lot of time in individual drills honing, but the stuff that just comes with either willingness or athleticism, he's got that stuff down. And a lot of that is special teams. Total special teams ace. He's a gunner. He's a returner. He's, he'll play on all the units and be valuable on all the units as a big speedster that's going to get down and get down the field and make stuff happen. At pick 102, special teamer, not good enough. The dude's got to do stuff at wide receiver for this to be a good pick, and I don't love the chances of that, and that's why I don't like the pick. But hey, look, Keenan McCardell signed off on this pick. They in the post-game media, Vikings brass made it pretty clear that like they implied that Keenan McCardell had given his sign off on this. But to me, it's like a project receiver that's going to contribute on special teams right away. That's like the vision here. We're like giving Matt Daniels the guy. And that's just not quite enough value for me for a third rounder, right? Like after all of this consternation about comp picks, right? The 97th pick is the first compensatory pick. And it's the Vikings are in line to get it again with Sam Darnold. And so after all of this like effort, right, to preserve that, I kind of want more of a contributor than like special teams, and hopefully he can like push Jalen Naylor someday. And like the way I see this playing out is, I mean, look, all camp competition will be open, right? You're going to have Addison and Jefferson and they do their thing. And then Jalen Naylor is going to be fending off everybody else for wide receiver 3. Rondale Moore is going to want it. Tai Felton's going to want it. Undrafted rookies are going to want it. Everybody's going to want it, right? And it's going to be Jalen Naylor versus the world, a king of the hill competition for wide receiver 3, right? And at this juncture, I just don't see Tai Felton being the guy that takes it. I'll explain why next, and plus maybe a little Donovan Jackson talk on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5 and everybody goes home. Your business is always flittering across your mind, and you always have to think about the big decisions, especially some of the biggest, like high leverage decisions that a small business will make, which is who they hire. You put a ton of time into that process. You put time and money into training that person once they are hired. You have to have made the right decision, because to go back and redo it is way, way, way too much cost. LinkedIn makes it easy to make that job correct in a couple of ways. For one, you can get a ton of candidates. You can get a huge pool to pull from. It's LinkedIn. Everybody's on LinkedIn. But for two, they have all kinds of tools that can help you research those candidates, pare down those candidates, and even help you write job descriptions and quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Moving right along here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. When you're done here, you can go check out patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL, where someday I'll have a Donovan Jackson video up. That will happen. And I'll probably do one on Tai Felton as well, but it won't be as positive because I don't think he's very polished. I think he's a very raw receiver. So I think a little bit they drafted a 40 time, but Kevin O'Connell talked about path to playing time in, I think it was his combine interview. Like path to playing time is an important thing, right? And I think that's a great way to reframe like positional need. Because some things are needs and some things are wants, right? But really it's, are you going to be able to like do something on my team, or am I going to have to, bench somebody? Like if I take a wide receiver, I'm not pulling out Justin Jefferson to put him in, right? If I take a left tackle, I'm not pulling out Christian Darrisaw to put him in. What's the path to getting you on the field? And for Tai Felton, that seems to be special teams holds you over, and then you eventually you hopefully get good enough at wide receiver we can use you. So what are the things that are like what are the barriers stopping you from getting into the game right now? What are the things that make you unviable as an NFL receiver? These are the things I want to explain, because unviable is the word that came to my mind. I cannot put this dude on the field. And two big ones. One, he tips the route with his shoulder pads. Two, he gets absolutely bodied by downfield contact. And also, I'm not as confident in this one, and I want to watch more tape because maybe it was just the one game, but it kind of doesn't look like he's going 100% when he should be going 100%. That's an accusation I don't want to levy at anyone lightly based on just game tape, because sometimes you're supposed to run 80% if you're like running through a zone. You're supposed to kind of start jogging it to like maximize the time that you're in the window. Sometimes for timing reasons, you don't want to outrun the route. You don't want to outrun your quarterback's arm. So when you are a 4-3-7 guy, you have to like sort of put a lid on it. But there are times when he's trying to run off a corner for a run play, or he's running a clear out route. You just go. You're never going to get the ball. That it doesn't look like he's going super fast. And I wanted to I've fallen victim to aesthetics before on this, where guys are really fast and they just don't look fast because they don't have to run really hard to like clear a lot of distance, because they have lanky legs, right? They're long legs, long stride. And he's a little bit that sort of guy. So I was like, let me make sure I'm not falling victim to aesthetics here. And actually timed it. I timed like a quick 10 yards in a go route, and then 10 yards when he had the ball in his hand. And it was like significant, like a half a second different. So he's just not going all the way. I'm sorry. That's math. 4-3-7 that runs a lot of routes as a 4-5 guy, because I guess he just doesn't think, like, I don't know. And the times, like, then the question is, when do you expect him to go fully, right? When he's setting up a timing-based route, you don't want to go all the way and then be waiting. It gives the defense, you don't want to tip your hand right away. You need to be breaking that time, that route off at the exact right time when the quarterback is looking at you, not before, not after. So control of your speed is as important as the speed itself. So I don't want to kill him for that, but there are times when this is a go route. This is a route down the field, go get it. It's a post route. You got to get down the field as fast as you possibly can and trust that the quarterback's going to get you the ball in time. And at the NFL level, a 4-3-7 is not historic. NFL quarterbacks can throw at your 4-3-7 speed. Let me see that 4-3-7 speed. So I'd be curious to see, like, this would be a question if I worked for the Vikings, right? This would be a question you would ask Maryland. Like, okay, what's the effort like? Is there an effort issue, or does it just look like it on tape because you're coaching it weird, right? Like, you'd have to be open to that answer. So I'm going to sort of put that one as a question mark, but not an X, and set it to the side. The two X's are that he tips the route every time. Okay, I want you to play a game. I want you to watch Tai Felton tape. If you can't get it, go to Caddy's Cut-Ups on Patreon. Give him $2, and you can have access to the Google Drive for a month. Download it, and you can watch all you want. $2. Okay, go do that and watch some Tai Felton tape. And I want you to just play the game of guess when he's breaking off the route. And you'll get one hint from me, okay? The one hint that you need is anytime the second his helmet pops up, he's about to break the route. And that's bad. That's it's called jumping the pads, and it's a bad habit that that drives receivers coaches nuts. It comes up a lot more in the Minnesota game, which is the one I spent the most time on, and then watching Penn State and then some of the like highlight stuff. And before I really like lock in this take, I'm going to watch more and see if maybe he was just out of it that game, right? But basically every single time I knew when he was going to break the route before he broke the route, because he came up, he popped his helmet up, he jumped the pads. So like when you come out of the route, first off, you want to go 100% on basically any route stem, unless there are specific timing reasons not to. But you basically want to go 100%. You at least want to look like you're going 100%, because an old wide receiver adage is everything is a go route until it isn't a go route. You want everything to look like it's going deep to stress DBs out. You want them to be like, oh my God, is this deep or not? Every single time. And basically no DB respected it, even though he has 4.3 speed, because they all knew that they could figure out when he was going to break that route off. So it was a little more difficult for him to get guys to turn their hips. And by the way, that's NFL talent in that Gopher secondary, right? One of those guys is Justin Wally, who went in the third round today, right? Went above him. Coy Parrish, also young, not ready for the draft yet, but will go to the NFL when it's his time. So against, NFL talent, they're not respecting the go route because they can call his bluff, because they know the second his helmet comes up, they know that the route's gonna break off. You can guess it just about every time. It's a really bad tell, and at the NFL level, that is going to get him absolutely smoked. The other thing that's going to get him absolutely smoked is that he just gets bodied by contact. There are so many examples of people. So walling is the term that I use for it, but it's when like a nickel corner or somebody in an underneath zone, when you run by that guy, they want to get hands on you and disrupt your route timing. He gets thrown all the way off balance by that stuff. He has a really hard time fighting through contact on like more physical reps. And, in ways that maybe, a DB wouldn't get away with that at the pro level, but it still showcases a difficulty that also exists for Jefferson, that exists for Addison, and it's like another guy like that. So this is not the big bully wide receiver that you want that can just like blow through somebody. This guy's definitely gonna struggle if you get his hands on him, or if you get your hands on him. So you're gonna struggle against contact. You're gonna tip all your routes, and you might not even run it all the way at 100%, and you're going to kind of just be a special teamer until you figure all that other stuff out. And I genuinely think that's the vision. I think the answer to all of the questions I'm posing here is, yeah, Keenum and Cardell will fix all that. Okay, good luck. Big project. Kind of hard to do. Keenum and Cardell, great receivers coach, but it's hard to do that with the limited time that you have in practice and the other prioritized people. So right now, if we're doing week 1 competition, who's going to win it? I'm still taking Jalen Naylor with a bullet. I still think Jalen Naylor's a pretty good receiver. I know he had his little dropsy chapter last year. By the way, focus drops issue, also a thing for Tai Felton. So we don't even get that point in his column because he has his own drops issue. And Speedy Naylor has all the speed in the world, but way more nuance in his routes. And runs it a lot better, and was a better prospect coming out too. I liked his tape better coming out. So there's just a lot more that Naylor can offer right now, but who knows? 2 years down the line, you figure out your jumping your pads thing. The effort thing is different. Maybe you're getting coached and like all the problems go away, and suddenly you have this awesome receiver and you have this upside thing. That's the vision here. And what I'll say before we move on, and we'll talk a little bit more about Donovan Jackson next, but the last thing I'll say on this is, whenever I don't like a draft pick, always, I will give it a God's honest chance. And honestly, the other way around too. If I really like a draft pick, I still am like very open. I have to be, right? You have to be really open to watching him play really bad in camp and being like, all right, well, that sucks. A lower stakes example from last year, Michael Juergens. I loved Michael Juergens coming out when they drafted him. I went up, I pulled up his tape. I was like, this dude kind of rules. He's kicking the crap out of a dude that went in the second round at Wake Forest. Like this is some awesome college tape. First preseason game, utter catastrophe. And I'm like, all right, well, that is going to do more for me than your college tape did. The first preseason game is going to have a way bigger effect on my opinion of both Donovan Jackson and Tai Felton than their college tape did. All right, this brings me a starting point, and this is my starting point is negative here, but go have a couple good camp practices and go turn some heads. I'll give it up immediately. You just have to be open to that. The pro level is different. But let's talk about Donovan Jackson, and in particular, the idea of him as a tackle and why a lot of people weren't necessarily as high on him. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are underway, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Game 4 is coming up at the Target Center, and if you want to gamble on it, maybe a little emotional hedge, right? Put a Lakers money line down so that if they lose, we got to do a Game 5. You don't feel as bad about it. You can do that, or you can put down some super short odds money line hockey playoffs if you want to do that as well. Whenever you place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. So go do something super likely, something you're really confident in, and you can get 50-1 odds on it just by going to FanDuel.com and claiming your $250 in bonus bets. Whatever it is, from moneyline spreads, over-unders, 3-point parlay, same game nonsense that you did at halftime, whatever it is, you can find it at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Moving right along here, the Locked On Vikings podcast. Enough haterade. All right, I'm going to go talk about a player that I like a lot and make myself happy again. So Donovan Jackson, one of the key responses that I got when I talked to him big time yesterday. I'm really excited about the pick. I love this player. I liked this player a lot coming in. He was one of the few players that I thought would actually make sense for the Vikings at 24, and that I was okay with selecting and declining trade downs to do, right? And I got receipts for that. Okay. I had that last week, but one of the, main detractions that I've heard is essentially this deference to consensus. So mostly it's Arif Hassan's consensus board. That's the one that's most visible in my circles, right? Vikings, that has him like 36th, I think is what it was. And without the kind of like super polarizing variance where you can be like, well, consensus is probably wrong. Like a very polarizing player on the consensus board is one of the like math things Arif does for that is sort of, he has a metric for like, okay, but does everyone agree on this player, right? Everyone agreed on Travis Hunter. Very little variance there. Everyone had him first or second or third, right? But Colston Loveland, some people had him as a top 10 player and agreed with that. And some people had him as a third rounder, right? Donovan Jackson lies somewhere in the middle, a pretty normal amount of variance. Most people had him somewhere in the 30s. Some people maybe had him in the 20s, but either way, most of the draft, like expert people that are turning in these big boards view this pick as a reach. So they reached on a guard against consensus and declined to trade down to do it. And you can start to see this very Twitter analytics-y idea coming up, this very like cut and dry analytics-y idea come up that critiques the pick, right? And so I have two responses to it. For one, okay, but is the player good, right? Like none of those things actually tell me that the player is bad. They tell me where he is on the consensus board, but that's not an opinion on the player. That's a ranking against others, not an evaluation of it. It tells me nothing about Donovan Jackson, right? He could be a 300-pound light guy. He could be a 350-pound slow guy. Like, doesn't tell me anything about why, right? But it also takes guidelines and principles, things, these like 55-45 edges, and treats them as like hard and fast rules, which is a pretty common pitfall I see on like the social media analytics world that I don't think translates into the real one. I think that it's a little smarter once you get into, people get paid to do this, are a little bit better at avoiding that pitfall, right? But that still raises the question, why are people so much lower on Donovan Jackson? What is the weakness here? Because I didn't talk about it when I did my show yesterday. So I should probably address the way people see, like the weaknesses that people see. And to be honest, they don't bother me all that much, but I should tell you about them. So one of the things that you see in like every scouting report under the weaknesses section is false steps. When you are taking your first steps as an offensive lineman, you want that first step to take you somewhere, right? Whether you're trying to go forward in a run block or to the side in a run block or back in a pass protection. What Donovan Jackson does, and this is a bad habit, is that the other foot will quickly pick up and put down right before the real first step. It's a false step. And it's not a huge deal. It's milliseconds, but in the trenches, you don't really have milliseconds to waste, so it matters. Sometimes that can be the difference between getting all the way to somebody, across somebody, or just getting to their face mask, and that might be the difference in the success of a run play or not, right? It's a small deal. Most of the like serious O-line coaches that I've talked to over my career have said, yeah, false steps are something you want to get rid of, but they're never going to be the thing, the like most dire thing you have to get rid of. If there are other technique problems, you're pretty much always going to focus on those first. And the false step is something you get to if you get to it. So it's not a huge deal to me, but it is a weakness. Fair enough. Another one that people said is that he doesn't have the heaviest hands. that when he gets his hands on you, there's not like a knockback effect. And while I do think that's true, I think there's a precision to it. He's not trying to get like a punch and shock the pads kind of effect. Not like Jonah Savainia, I think is how you say his name. The Arizona tackle moving to guard, he's on the Dolphins now, loves the 1-2 punch, right? Where you send one, or Will Fries plays this way. Maybe that's a better way. You send one, and then you kind of you send one hand, try to shock the pads, you bring the other one, and essentially put a hand right on their kidney, basically, and like punch him there. And then you have all the control in the world of his torso. You can even torque him like that. But he sends that first arm out to get a big punch. Ed Ingram actually played this, like a lot of people teach it this way. And how strong and quick and resilient that punch is going to sort of determine whether it's successful or not. Donovan Jackson doesn't do that. He's a two-hand puncher through and through. Again, this is chocolate or vanilla. Like, this is a total matter of taste for how your coaches decided how to do it. And if you get 30 O-line coaches in a room and ask if you should two-hand punch or like 1-2 punch, you'll like start an argument. So there's not like one agreed upon right way to do this at all. And I actually think it's a fascinating debate. But he's a two-hand puncher through and through, and he's trying to place his hands and get leverage and go rather than shock the pads. I would love to see him shock the pads more. I think it's totally a fair critique, but it's fine because he's so good at like setting up the leverage and keeping his hips square and stuff that he can still take those positions and turn them into wins even without the help of shocking the pads. You don't need to do every single thing under the sun to win the rep. You just need to do what you need to do to win that rep, and it's plenty. He's already got plenty. The one that I think is unsaid is, so Donovan Jackson played the majority of last year at tackle. Josh Simmons got hurt and he had to kick out to play it. He did okay at tackle, but there are problems at tackle that really hurt him. His kick step is just not very fast. He just doesn't get a lot of distance very quickly. So somebody like Abdul Carter cooked him, like could just get around him too fast, couldn't handle it. And, you know, a lot of like, I was asking around like, so what's the problem with Donovan Jackson? And people are like, watch the Penn State game. So I did. And it was like, yeah, he's too slow in his kick step and the edge rusher's getting, you know, the third overall guy is getting around him. But that's not a problem at guard. So like, okay, that doesn't tell me why he shouldn't be a first round guard. You know, like that. And by the way, Gray Zabels is awful too. Like he went 18th overall. Nobody's really arguing with that. Even though that was also a huge reach on consensus. And Tyler Booker went 12th overall. So like that's not in and of itself enough to sink a guard, right? Because none of those guys have the kick steps that will get all the distance. That's why they're at guard. So, but like, I think it really depended on how you looked at Donovan Jackson. I put myself in the shoes of somebody trying to make a big board, right? Trying to compare 300 players all across positions and all across schools and rank them, right? And I think of it like, if I'm not covering the Vikings, it's super easy for me to dismiss all the tackle problems because I know he's not going to play tackle here. And I would actually say, you can probably take that to the bank, write this down. Donovan Jackson is not going to kick outside to tackle. Don't suggest it when Christian Darrisaw isn't ready for week 1 that Donovan Jackson should kick outside to tackle. It's going to be Justin School. You're going to be fine. Maybe it's even Blake Brandel kicks back out. You'll have him compete, like whatever. But if I'm one of these like national draft analysts, I'm not thinking from that perspective at all. What if he does go to a team that asks him to play tackle? Well, then all these problems count and I'm going to downgrade him for it. So I kind of understand that like him being evaluated as a tackle / guard prospect is going to feel worse than him being evaluated as a pure guard prospect. He is a pure guard to me. But I think it was Dane Brugler said like, well, he played pretty well at tackle and it forced teams to reevaluate. And sometimes what Brugler writes comes from a place of sources. So like there's truth to that in how teams saw it as well. And that might have like worked against him a little bit. So I don't know. I see two fair critiques that are pretty small deals that are true, that are fair, but they're not the kinds of weaknesses that sink you. And I think the one that does sink you, it just doesn't matter to me because I cover the Vikings. But like if I covered the Chiefs and the Chiefs drafted this guy instead of Josh Simmons, like that would be a totally different story. And I think sometimes you have to like read between the lines or use context clues to see how people are thinking about this. But ask yourself, like, people are like, well, wait, why did they take Donovan Jackson and not Josh Simmons? Well, it's because they didn't need a tackle. And maybe they forgot that Christian Darrisaw is there. They just saw, Cam Robinson give up a bunch of sacks and leave and go, well, tackle's a need. Are they really going to put this guy at tackle? And just forgot about Christian Darrisaw, which, hey, look, when you're covering 32 teams, whatever, it's fair. Trust local coverage. Please keep listening to Locked On Vikings. I won't forget about Christian Darrisaw anytime soon. But like, if that happens to you, then I kind of get why you're going to say, wait, is Donovan Jackson even good? He got killed by Abdul Carter. But the way that Abdul Carter killed him just doesn't matter to me because he's only a guard here, and that's fine. And it just works out. It papers over all the issues. I will talk to you all tomorrow at the end of day 3. I'll actually talk to you tomorrow. I might even be live while you're listening to this. So go check out the Locked On Vikings or Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube page. I might be live on it if day 3 is ongoing right now as you're listening to this. And we'll be there talking. I have all kinds of punishments that I have to do. This is a betting punishment for losing the betting contest on the Minnesota Football Party. I will see you all there. Come on down, make fun of me. We'll all have a good time. And as always, Skol.